Well, that was uh, that was an experience. Can't say that I want to do it again, but I have to in a couple weeks. I really don't want to do that again. That was not fun. Let's see. I don't want to go to bed. I just want to go to sleep. Not sleeping well either. Yeah, that was not a good ride. Oh, just that was it kicked my butt. That vaccine crushed me. I got to do that again on early part of June. I do not like the idea of that. Let's see if we can just plug some things in then. I'm plugging everything into the wrong places tonight because I got back. So much went wrong. So much went wrong this past week. I'm not going to be able to get that to go in, and I'm not going to fight it. I'm not fighting it right now. I'm not going to fight that. That's not a fight I want to have. Oh, I am super tired. It's been a long week. So, my shot was. See, I'm tempted to say my shot was worse than the actual COVID was. It's not entirely true, though. For me, the COVID that I got last year started barely noticeable, not feeling great, built to feeling like crap for several days on end, and then peaked at the end of that, and then diminished for almost a week after that, and then left me with not up to full capacity for several weeks after that, like just feeling like I was dragging for a long time. And for months after that, I still had brain fog and easily tired. But this vaccine shot, within an hour, I got a little dizzy. Within an hour of that, my arm was definitely sore. I felt tired. But within, I want to say 5 or 6 hours, I really just felt exhausted. Not like full on exhausted, but just a little tired. And then subsequent to that, around 12 hours, around 12 hours after I got the shot, I got uncontrolled shivering for an hour and a half, just like an hour and a half of just shaking and shivering. I didn't feel particularly cold. And it's interesting because I went and stayed with family, and there was a whole host of other problems that happened around that too. But the room I was in was not heated, and it's still chilly up north a bit. So I'd wager the room did feel a little chilly, but I didn't feel it. I just started shaking uncontrollably. And that lasted for about an hour and a half. I had my laptop with me, and my laptop balanced on me and just like full clenched and shaking. So I couldn't really, like, I could tap a few buttons here and there and just stay there laying on the bed with the laptop on my stomach, head propped up with a pillow, and my legs behind the screen of the laptop, holding it up, shaking wildly. And I just tried for like an hour and a half to just work through it and have that. It took an hour and a half for that to subside, and it would stay away so long as I didn't rapidly change temperature of the room I was in. So if I pulled the covers off and went to go to the bathroom or go get a glass of water, I would shake the whole way I walked. And I felt my temperature rising pretty substantially as I went. And I could feel my body temperature was super hot by about 3 hours after the shivering started. Like, I didn't have a thermometer with me, and I kind of wish I had brought my thermometer with me, because I would almost guarantee you that my temperature was over 102. And so that lasted for probably, I think the fever probably lasted 26 hours, maybe 28. I think all told, most of my symptoms clung on for 30 some odd hours. I say most of them, I could say that they stuck around at least that long. The thing was that when they kicked in, when I had those symptoms happen, I didn't take anything and I didn't do anything. I felt it was important to let it take its course, because it's not supposed to make me violently ill, and it's not supposed to risk my health. It's not going to kill me. So I felt it important that this is my immune system doing what it's supposed to do by catching up on what it needs to do with this vaccine. And so I kind of wanted to just let it do its thing. But, 30 hours into the process, I'm like, I'm taking a Tylenol, because the fever felt like it was starting to break. Like, I got a little bit of the sweats, and like I felt my temperature lower again, but then it would go back up. It would just like go down, up, down, up, down, up, and I'm like, it's like I'm not really up for another night of trying to fall asleep when I'm already having enough trouble sleeping with this crap going on. So I just said, like, no, I don't want to fight this fight. And I took a Tylenol, and my shoulder was super sore on top of it all. I had a mild amount of nausea and some stomach pain. And by the, I want to say by the end of the 20-hour mark, I started to get a very stiff neck, like a very, very stiff neck. So just doing something like this would just be too tight, and it hurt too much. And I had this little back of the head headache going on. Not like a full on, like, throbbing, like up here where you feel it pounding kind of headache. This was more of a back of the head, just sort of like a dull ache in the back of my head. And so that wasn't, it wasn't super bad. It didn't feel like something I needed to take Tylenol for specifically, but the sore shoulder and the reluctance of the fever to really finally just go was like, I'm taking it. I'm taking a Tylenol, and we're going to just do it. Took a Tylenol, and I did feel like the fever finally just faded. I don't know that I really noticed an immediate loss to the headache for a couple hours afterwards. I don't even really know for sure when I'd say the headache was no longer there. It's possibly something that happened overnight. I still have some digestive upset. But overall, I'm not feeling as bad as I have the last few days. My left shoulder is still sore, and it's not just the injection site. There's some of like the tendons on this shoulder feel sort of like they're swollen or irritated. So they're very sensitive. I sort of feel like I get some joint pain sometimes when we're going to get a bad storm. That's sort of what it feels like right now. Some tenderness there and on the backside. And the thing that bothers me is there's sort of like a pain up and down the arm, and it's my left arm. Of course, it's going to freak me out a little bit, but up and down my arm a bit, there's this sort of like, if I do too much or I move a lot, it feels like I can't tell if it's the nerves or the veins that feel like they're too short for the length of my arm. So as I move my arm, it feels like they're stretching, and it's uncomfortable. Not my favorite feeling in the world. But that's most of what's left over. I still have a little bit of tiredness and achiness, but I also didn't sleep well. I ate like a pig. Well, that's not true. I felt so crap that about 18 to 20 hours after I got the shot, I was awake, but I was just stuck in bed. And there was a part of me that's like, you haven't eaten in at least 7 hours. You should probably go get something to eat. And it took me like an hour and a half to haul my butt out of bed. And it was just so hard. It was just so hard to move, to exert the energy to lift myself out of that bed and go down and get something to eat. But moving actually helped it be easier to move more. But yeah, like once you stopped, it was just like the inertia, the hurdle of getting moving again was so hard. And I really didn't sleep well. The first night I got about 4.5 hours of sleep, but I was so absolutely wiped out that by the time midday rolled around, I did not off for another 3 hours, I think. So I got about 7.5 hours of sleep, which is a decent night's sleep there. But last night, I think I probably got about 5 hours sleep. It took me forever to fall back asleep. Like, I tried to go to bed at, I want to say 1 or 2 in the morning. And I think it was probably 5:30 before I could fall asleep. Finally fell asleep. I was woken by my frickin' mother's dog. I don't blame the dog. It's just doing dog things. But I'm exhausted. It took me 5 hours to fall asleep. And you woke me up 3 hours after that. And it took me 2.5 hours to get 1 more hour of sleep, to get to sleep again. And then I slept like an hour, woke up again, nodded off for like 10 minutes 3 times over the next 2 hours. And then the dog started going crazy again. I just said, well, I'm done. I'm done. I'm up. We'll just go with 5 hours of sleep, and maybe it'll make it easier to fall asleep tonight. I don't know. But so I didn't get a lot of sleep. Very, very tired. And that vaccine kicked my butt. Like I said, I'm tempted to say it was worse than the coronavirus, which is not entirely true. It spiked harder than the coronavirus hit me, but it was 30 hours rather than 10 days, 14 days, however long that whole thing took to spike me last time. But I will say I'm less excited about the possibility of doing a second round. I don't really want to. Chat's not working tonight, I guess. All right, cool. I don't know what's going on with that. Yeah, so I'm not super excited about, June 3rd when I have to go in for my next round. And theoretically, according to some studies that have been done, people who have already had it, they don't get any benefit from the second shot. They reach their maximum vaccination potential after the first shot. But boy, howdy, did that kick my butt. And that was not the only thing going on this weekend. It was just a hell of a weekend. It's technically it was my first 4-day weekend in almost forever. Like, I'm trying to remember if I've had a 4-day weekend in the whole time that I've worked for this company. It's almost 2 years at this point. I don't think I've had other than being out to be in quarantine because of COVID. I don't think I've had a string of days. So every time that I've been out for more than 2 days in a row, or 3 days in a row, I guess there were a couple of times I had 3 days in a row. Every time I've been out for that length of time, it's been because I've been sick or something like that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the case there. So I would say this is no different because I had no weekend. I didn't get anything I wanted to do done, and I was pretty miserable most of the time. So I got to my family location, and during the course of the day, we pulled out the couch bed for me to sleep on. And when we pulled it out, and tried to adjust the mattress on it, somewhere in its past, somebody had spilled a liquid onto some portion of it. I think it soaked right through the mattress and soaked down to the bottom layer, where the membrane on the frame is a non-permeable membrane, so it just pooled there and stayed there. And somebody spilled or something like that happened, and nobody said anything about it. And so the sheets were removed, washed, dried. Nobody noticed anything. The top layer dried looking fine. The bottom layer, there's some water staining on it. Maybe nobody thought anything about it, but it was just folded away into the couch for months on end. And so when we pulled it out and we were flipping up the edges of that to put a mattress pad on it. There was mildew all over the bottom of the mattress and on the frame of the couch. We Lysoled down the whole frame of the couch, pulled off the mattress, put on some foam cushions, covered it with a mattress pad, and that's what I slept on. And it hurt. There was no part of that was comfortable. That was a painful experience. Not the best sleeping surface at all. And then past that point, I spent several nights trying to sleep on that thing. First night I did get a little socializing with family in before the sickness kicked my butt. But at one point during the evening, my mom went to go do something, tripped over a vacuum she left out. And I mean, this is somebody in her late 70s, approaching 80. And she tripped over this thing. She rolled hard and slammed into a wall. And she's really lucky she didn't break anything. But she spent the next couple days in a bit of pain herself. And that made it for a hard night's sleep. And so the two of us were not in the best of shape. And part of the reason she was going where she was going when she tripped was she wanted to go check to see, because tick season is here. And in the last 4 days, she's found at least 3 ticks on herself from just going out into the yard. The grass is cut. It's a little long, but it's not long. But she's found multiple ticks on herself. And so she thought she felt another one, and so she was going to go check, and tripped on a vacuum that she'd been using earlier that day. And later in the stay, it was literally this afternoon, I think, I was tired, and I had made brunch for her for Mother's Day, and we both took the opportunity to maybe go lay down and relax for a little bit. I was relaxing with my laptop. I was getting ready to get a little nap in, actually, see if I could recoup some of the missed sleep from the night. And just barely noticed, out of the corner of my eye, crawling right up my front, was a tick. And that just set me off. And so I killed it, proceeded to go through the entire process of searching myself and all of my clothing and most of my belongings that were in the house to make sure that they weren't crawling into any of that stuff. And I just sort of, like, at that point, like, I'm doing so much that, like, any chance at having a nap is just now gone. It's not going to happen at that point. So no nap for me. Still tired. And now having that every time a hair brushes your neck or does something like that, and just like, what was that? What was that? What was that? What was it? What was it? And it's just, yep, don't need that right now. So, and then it was, before we knew it, the stay was over. I'd say 94% recouped from the vaccine. Still got some of that crap left over from it. But, I mean, it is what it is. What are you going to do? So, I mean, at that point, I'm like, all right, well, okay. C'est la vie. Time to move on. A whole 4-day chunk of time that I had to call out of work because they didn't take my statement that I wasn't going to be available. And so I had to call out of work for the whole several days that I was out. And time's up now. I go back to work tomorrow. I got to use up that time that I've got left, because I'm not going to be there much longer, I don't think. But yeah, so it's been sort of a crummy week. I can't believe I'm going to do that to myself again on June 3rd. The only thing is, and I don't know why I'm not getting any. I'm not getting any chat capabilities on the video here. I hope it's going up. It seems to be going live, but I can't post anything in the comments. I can't add anything or do anything. So it is what it is, I guess. I'm gonna go in for the next shot, partly because by June it'll have been more than a year since I was infected with COVID. And I know technically when you're infected with COVID, you do have some antibodies. They don't know for sure how long those antibodies last. But they've structured the shots in such a way that they're like 3 to 4 weeks apart, because that's the prime window for the antibody instigation, followed by the secondary incident that triggers further immune adaptation. So I feel like if I only went with the one shot, it might waste the benefits of getting the vaccine, because I don't know for sure that the COVID infection has left enough behind that I've recouped from. But to be fair, my reaction to the first shot seems to suggest that there's something left, because your body doesn't react like that on the first shot for most people. Most people have that as their second shot reaction. So my body's reacting like it's already had its first shot. This was the second one. But I'm still going to get the second shot, in part because I do think there may be some additional advantage because of the time frame the antibodies have had to run down in my body. Now, that's if that's happened, there is very possibly the fact that I've probably been exposed to it since I had it. So I had COVID. I can almost guarantee you that I've been exposed to it again while I was working my job. And that re-exposure may just have topped up my immune response. But the other indicators that I'm paying attention to are the possibility that immunity to the strain I caught, or protection against the strain that I caught, is not the same thing as immunity to the family of variants that are also out there, which the vaccine is supposed to be decent at. Although I will admit, on one of the future forums that I'm a member of, where we talk about science, technology, and the future, somebody was talking about how some scientists are now talking about the possibility of doing a regular booster shot for COVID. I'm like, that shit better not be as bad as this was for me. Because if I have to get a booster shot every year, 2 years, or even every 5 years, and every time I get it, it's like this, I'm not doing it again. I'm like, maybe every few years it diminishes my capability of not getting it, and then like by 5-10% or something like that. But if I have to do this if I have to do this every year, I'm not doing it. If I have to do it every 2 years, I'm probably not going to do it. If I have to do it every 5 years, I'll consider it, but very seriously. I will consider a bubble suit as seriously as I consider getting that shot every 5 years. But good Lord, like if it does this, like this was worse than, like if you took my New Year's Eve mead hangover, tripled it, and gave me a regular cold on top of it with a slight fever, this was still worse than that. And I'm not doing that regularly. Not for any amount of money in the world. But, I say that, and that's sort of like, I would probably still do it. But I'm going to resent it, and I'm going to be angry the whole way we do it. Just in part because those degree of symptoms were really miserable. I can think of maybe 7 times in my life where I've had an illness outside of my chronic digestive problems, like a flu or a cold or pneumonia or something like that. I can think of 5 to 7 times in my life that are a little worse than this. But every regular cold, every occasional flu that I've had, they don't even measure on this scale. Like, that was a rough run. But theoretically, here's the other thing. I guess I kind of have to try out that when I get my second shot, I am going to take Tylenol as I go to my appointment so that when I get my shot, it's already getting ready to kick in. And then from that point on, keep myself topped up on Tylenol. It'll keep the fever down. It'll probably keep the aches down. It'll probably keep the headache away. That would probably bump everything down into the territory of a standard cold, and it would probably reduce the time it takes me to get through to less than 30 hours. So with that in mind, that may make it more tolerable. But any booster shots we ever need in the future had best get their stuff together. So this is not how it goes every time we get one of these beasts. Because I'm not doing that all the time. Like, I will self-isolate. I will hole up in a cabin in the frickin' woods because that'll be just as effective. But at any rate, we're almost at 35 minutes. I'm going to try to get some sleep tonight. I will catch you on Tuesday. And maybe whatever's going on with chat tonight, I don't know. Maybe we'll get it figured out by then. Until then, I hope you had a good week. Take care and have a good night. I can't even type that in tonight. So, all right. Well, catch you later.